Have a seat, man.
All right.
Sorry to keep you waiting so long. I put a deck chair in a side yard, a couple of 100 feet from the others who were enjoying a Memorial Day cookout. One of the men,
John Street, S-T-R-E-E-T.
He brought with him several pictures. When John was a young man, the Army sent him to a group of islands in the Pacific Ocean.
I'm taking a picture of somebody taking a picture. I just thought it was a cool picture as a silhouette.
Yeah, it is cool.
Sunsets and the sunrises were just unreal every day.
The photos look like an amazing place to visit.
Do you want to see, you want to see storms?
I want to see whatever you want to show me.
I'll show you anything.
He was in the Marshall Islands, the Inuiatak Atoll, in the 1970s. Between 1948 and 1958, 43 nuclear tests were performed there. From 1977 to 1979, the Department of Energy, civilian contractors, and United States service members were sent there to clean up the nuclear fallout from the testing.
They told us that the radiation we're going to be exposed to was no worse than the background radiation of Denver, Colorado. And through the years talking to guys, they must have had the same orientation because that's what they were told.
So no more dangerous than Denver, right? A city with more than 700,000 people who live there. Well, these three islands that are part of this story, Lojua, that was the base camp where they lived, and the two where they worked, Ingebi and Ruinit, right? Some of the most radioactive places on Earth. Yeah, and from before the 1940s, before the testing, to today, the only time anyone has lived on those islands was during 1977 to 1979 when John and the others were there. So not much like Denver at all.
Usually within the first 2 weeks, when I got there, it was in the first 2 weeks, they called it orientation. They showed you videos on sharks and showed you some old 8mm or 16mm videos.
Did you watch any videos about radiation?
I can't recall if there was any on radiation.
They took some of that nuclear debris left scattered from the testing and put it in a crater left after a nuclear test called the Cactus Test. Then they covered the debris with a dome, a 1.5 foot thick concrete barrier, a nuclear sarcophagus. The tomb, as it's called by many, is a protective barrier, but there are problems with that too. There's no protective layer underneath the dome's contents, and over the 40+ years since it was built, it has now developed cracks. But it is much more protection than the men who filled that crater had during the mission.
They would put you in the banana suits and make you run around the island 2 laps just so you could get acclimated to the heat. That's what they told us. And then they, after that, they took them up and waited for the next group of newbies to come in and they'd do the same thing. And they'd put them up. Never would see them on any job site. They wore shorts and boots. Some may have had some type of mask, depending on the job they had. One man showed me a picture of the gas mask he wore at times. Others told me if the dust was too heavy, they were told to wrap a t-shirt around their head. Most of the photos I have seen, they were wearing just a little bit more than what you or I would wear to the beach. Again, while touching, breathing, even ingesting soil and other material so hazardous, no one can live here. But they did. When you think back to that time and kind of the things you guys were exposed to, how do you think about it? Well, I wonder how come so many of them have had so many problems and I haven't. And because we were all in the same place. So I don't know if that's a genetic thing. I don't know what it is, because we all breathe the same dust. I think about, some of them with so many different problems. And I'm just waiting on my time for something to pop up. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, just like I told my wife, she says, well, you need to go get this checked or get checked or whatever. And I just told her, I said, the day I wake up dead, then I'll know what got me. This is just one of the many complicated stories of nuclear testing conducted by this country. When John Street there says all the people with all the problems, I've done a lot of reporting on this, and I want to show you this. These are two men who were there on this mission, Bucky Holmes and Carlos Vela.
I had to have back surgery, and that was back in 1996.
That was one of the first indications that there was something wrong here.
And the doctor at that time said I had the bones of a 90-year-old.
Carlos was in his 30s. Bucky was about the same age when he was told he was having severe bone density problems.
So I lost all my teeth at 36 years old.
Over the last 20 years, more health issues.
I've had kidney problems. I've had my gallbladder removed.
Prostate cancer. I have COPD, and I've never smoked.
I had a widowmaker heart attack back last April.
No one else in my family has anything that I have.
I take that every day.
And this you're about to hear from a podcast I released about a year ago.
I've had 2 detached retinas and 1 cataract surgery in my right eye, and 1 detached retina and 2 cataract surgeries in my left eye.
And you believe that is from the NWTVC?
Correct. There's no history of it in the family, either side. No known causative factor. I've never in an accident. No sports. Wasn't boxing, skydiving. The doctors have no idea, but they say ionizing radiation can attack the eyes sometimes up to 50, 60 years after exposure. That it gradually weakens the whatever's in there. I'm not an ophthalmologist.
I had gotten a terrible psoriasis. I mean, all over my body. Within a matter of 4 hours, it went from my wrist, poof, just covered my whole body. I went to the doctor. I go, what's going on here? He goes, you got the worst case of psoriasis I ever seen in my life.
Even though I'm healthy as a horse, all 3 of my kids had birth defects. And doesn't make sense because there's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly healthy, but all 3 of them had birth. I lost my middle daughter, my youngest daughter, from transposition of the major arteries. We lost her at 18.
The guys that did pass away had multiple cancers at one time, which is not even close to being normal.
Today on the show, my conversation with Army veteran John Street. I am Josh Roe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. Tell me when you were in Enowetak.
I was in Enowetak from October of 78 till the end of March 79.
And what'd you do over there?
First 2 weeks, I changed tires in the motor pool, and then after that, they gave me a dump truck, and that's what I did for the rest of the time. Went from Lodgeville to Ingeby every day on a boat ride, loaded up, went to Runit, dumped it. Came back, got another load, took it back to Runit. They had these things called larks, the big wheels, amphibious, and they could put 1 dump truck on that. Or you might dump your stuff on a lark, and they might clean it off with a front end loader when you got there. There are some boats could take a couple of trucks, and some of the bigger boats could take like 6 trucks at a time. So it's just according to what showed up.
So they would take your dump truck and
load it up, take it over there, and you would drive it off the ramp, drive it down towards the crater, and dump it. That's all we did.
You showed me the pictures earlier.
This is on Lodgeville. That's the only time you'd ever see us in the shirts. We had to actually put on our t-shirt and our short sleeve shirt. Somebody important came, so they had to come and look at the equipment and stuff, so we had a regular Army inspection.
The pictures of the banana suits.
Yep.
That when you first got there, they make you put them on when you were there.
Yeah, usually within the first 2 weeks, when I got there, it was in the first 2 weeks, they called it orientation. They showed you videos on sharks and showed you some old 8mm or 16mm videos about different things, and then they would make you get out there, dress you up, tape up your boots and your wrists and the gloves, and put a mask on and make you run around the island for 2 laps. They said it was getting you acclimated for when you were going to wear the suits later. Then they took them off, and we never saw them again. I never saw one on anybody working at any site. And I've seen the pictures in the magazines. I know all about the photo ops and stuff, but I never saw anybody wearing them.
You said the orientation, you watched a video about sharks. Did you watch any videos about radiation?
I can't recall if there was any on radiation. The one thing I do know is they told us that the radiation we're going to be exposed to was no worse than the background radiation of Denver, Colorado. And through the years talking to guys, they must have had the same orientation because that's what they were told. It was not going to be harmful. It was just, like natural background radiation coming out of the Rocky Mountains. So that's all I can remember seeing it.
Lojua and Ruinit and Ninjaby are all northern islands, right? They're in the north.
Yeah. And Weetock's on the bottom.
Yep.
You come up the eastern side, and that was the island where the Marshallese were. You come on up, keep coming up, and you hit Ruinit, and then there's a couple other little islands. I think one of them was called Gilligan's Island, and then there was Lojua. And Lojua went from the northeast corner, and then you went around to Sally and Amman and a bunch of other little islands, and then Ingeby was over towards the northwest corner, and then below it, a little bit southwest of it, was Boken, and that was the bird sanctuary. Thousands and thousands of birds.
Wow. And so, but when you guys were there, nobody lived on most of those islands.
No, there was nobody on the northern islands. None. Yeah. That's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to clean it all for them so they could go back, because there's two different groups in Anahuac. The dry Ingeby, who lived in the northern islands, and the dry Anahuac, who lived in the southern islands. It's like there were two different clans or families or whatever, I don't know.
What's the last couple of days been like to be here with all these guys? How's that been?
Oh, it's fun. Just, I've met people I've met before in Springdale, and some down. We had another reunion that they were talking about earlier. Some of them didn't know because they weren't there. We had one back near where I live in North Carolina in Forest City. I mean, we had a pretty good group there. And so it's just, I met people here that I've seen on Facebook, and finally they got to come. Yep. And I met some people that I just found on Facebook that actually live in towns that I go through when I'm going back from North Carolina back home to Georgia.
How's your health?
I think it's, for my age, I'm pretty good. I don't really know because I don't go to the doctor. I try to avoid them, always have. And the only thing that I know any effects I've had some spots, skin spots that were cancerous, cut off my back and a little one off my leg. I found out the last few years of teaching school, they said I had high blood pressure, but since I'm retired from teaching, that's gone.
So overall, not too bad.
No, I'm still pretty active for my age. I play golf, softball, old man's baseball.
And how old are you?
64.
64. When you think back to that time and kind of the things you guys were exposed to, I mean, how do you think about it?
Well, I wonder how come so many of them have had so many problems and I haven't. And because we were all in the same place. So I don't know if that's a genetic thing. I don't know what it is, because we all breathe the same dust. I think about, some of them with so many different problems, and I'm just waiting on my time for something to pop up. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, just like I told my wife, she says, well, you need to go get this checked or get checked or whatever. And I just told her, I said, the day I wake up dead, then I'll know what got me. So that's my attitude toward it. Yeah. I'm just try to keep a positive attitude, and I've always had the attitude of, because I taught middle school for 30 something years. I always, in my mind, felt like I was 18.
A big thank you to John Street for this conversation. I've done a lot of reporting on this mission. You can find all of that in the description and show notes of this episode. And there is so much more to this story. The PACT Act, it was passed back in 2022, and these veterans were included, but that gets very complicated very quickly, especially if your illness is not on the list for the PACT Act. And what about the civilians on this mission? I've talked to two extensively for my reporting, Paul Griego and Ken Kasich. There's nothing in place to help the civilians on this mission. And there are many more conversations I'm going to show you in the future with more people who were there. Look for that on a future episode of Tomorrow Town, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon. Thanks for making News Channel 9 your trusted source for local news. For updates and the latest on breaking news, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.